Hey up, and welcome to Corey's Corner. So this was supposed to be my 500 subscriber special, but at this point we're almost at like 700 subscribers. And part of that's on me. It takes me ages to do anything. I'm just such a huge procrastinator. But thank you to everyone who's new, who's subscribed and whatever, and thank you to everyone who's old as well. Like the people who've been watching from the very beginning, pretty much, because I do recognise you guys in the comments, who've been commenting again and again, and it really does mean a lot to me that you're not bored of me. Yeah, so this channel really is like the one thing holding me together at this point. So really, I mean it. Thank you. And really quick before we get into the questions, I wanted to talk about the future of the channel. Well, I mean the channel isn't really going to change too much, but my life is changing in a dramatic way because basically I've given up. I'm going to girlfriend at this point. At this point I know it isn't going to happen. And don't get me wrong, I knew it was over. It wasn't going to happen. I knew a long time ago, but with with recent events, I mean, I talked about it in my past like 3 videos, but with recent stuff, I give up. I'm not pursuing women anymore, and I'll talk more about that on Monday. But my point is this means I'm going to be doing things for myself instead of trying to self-improve for other people. I know that's like sounds like cope or whatever, but I'm probably going to stop talking about women as much as I do or as I did. And I know a lot of people complain that I just complain all the time, so hopefully they'll be happy to hear that. And I'm going to be a bit more positive maybe depending on how things go. And like I said, I'll talk more about it on Monday. But I've talked long enough. Let's get into the questions, I guess. So firstly, Stony Lonesome asks, hypothetically, if you were to start dating a girl and you find her genuinely cute, get along, enjoy each other's company, and have common hobbies/interests, but she denies any and all sexual contact/activity no matter how you approached or asked, would you stay with her, basically? Um, I've actually known quite a few guys who've been in this situation, most of whom don't have many options to begin with. So would I go out with a girl who wouldn't have sex with me, basically? So that's a good question. I think, well, first of all, it depends if she's a virgin or not, because if she's already kind of ridden the cock carousel, then that's enough to kind of clue me in that I'm probably in a beta buck situation. And I've been trying to get the fuck out of that as soon as possible, really, to be honest with you. If not, maybe she just doesn't want to have sex from anyone for some reason. I'd probably never leave, to be honest, in that situation, because if she's not my friend and we're actually dating, like, I'd assume I'm still, getting some of my emotional needs met by her. And if she actually loved me, then that's a hell of a lot better than what I've got now, which is nothing, basically. So yeah, I mean, but really, like, this doesn't really happen, I don't think. It's almost always like an alpha fox beta buck situation, and especially if she's got kids already, I mean, that's when you know it's over. Even if you can have sex once in a while, which in this situation you can't even do that, it just isn't worth it. Honestly, being a kissless, hugless, handholdless virgin is probably better than being like a beta male provider, I think, to be honest, just because it's so depressing. I mean, that's when you know it's over. Yeah, my heart goes out to any guys who are actually in that situation. My uncle's in a similar situation, actually. That's the one who got arrested for dressing up like a naval officer and bringing his copy of Mein Kampf that he carried around everywhere with him onto the Isle of Wight Ferry. So I've seen these situations firsthand, playing out. I'll probably talk more in depth about him one day, but his wife is really obese. Like, genuinely, she's probably the fattest person I've ever seen in real life, honestly. Um, well, I call him my uncle, actually. We're not actually related by blood. I don't really know like why I know him or why he hangs out with my family, but I haven't seen him in years anyway. But yeah, that's just a brutal situation. She's got kids, and it's just, jeez, man, fucking hell. But yeah, next question, I guess. So True Image YT asks for a nice childhood memory that I think of often. Honestly, not much comes to mind. I mean, when I think about my childhood, especially when I was like really young, like elementary school type stuff, most of the things that come to mind are just being humiliated, brutal mogging by other kids, like being excluded from social groups and that kind of thing. But I'll say like something I remember very fondly from my time in high school actually were these music classes we used to have. And this is pretty random, but in our school they had this like classroom that they taught music in, but also they had a bunch of these little like cubicle type rooms that they'd send us into to practice like music or whatever. And the thing is, there's only one teacher, and there's a bunch of these rooms that they'd send us off into in little groups, right? So people could just mess around and do whatever the fuck they wanted, pretty much. And I remember like having a lot of fun in these rooms, and we had music at the end of the day. I think it was like Friday, like we were on like a weekly schedule, but it was the end of every day. Like we'd go there, and I'd just be looking forward to it all week. And we'd go in there and we'd just mess around, you know. Like I don't really know how to put it into words, but we just have fun, you know. And one thing we'd do is we'd have someone like go and knock on the door of another room, and then they'd like run away, which was really funny at the time. Like I know it sounds like really stupid now, but honestly at the time it was like hilarious. And I have like a lot of memories of that actually, of just being in school, not even just in music, but just doing like dumb fun stuff like that kind of thing. Just because we never used to take anything seriously, you know. But during the whole time, like it was interspersed with like brutal rejections and being humiliated a bunch of times, and like teachers treating me like shit. And I remember asking like my mum one day actually, like why I always got picked on by teachers, like why no teachers liked me. Because the thing is, like I would try really, really hard. My mum's a teacher herself, so I try really hard to like behave well. When I like started out in high school, like to the end of high school, I stopped giving a fuck. But like at the start, I tried really hard to like behave. And I asked my mum like why I couldn't, you know, do it, and my mum just said to me, she was like, "Oh, it's just your face. It's just how you look." Absolutely fucking brutal. But yeah. All right, I'm gonna answer some questions quickly now, like some quick fire stuff. So otherwise we'll be here all day. So here we go. So Neuromog, I don't know, asks how tall I am. I'm around 5'9" or 5'10", I think. I don't know exactly because I had to measure myself. Like I had to have to like put my finger on the door, and like I had to stand by my door and like measure it like that. But I think I'm around 5'9", 5'10". So it might not be super accurate, but if it's like not that, it'll be like just a little bit higher. Like I'm no taller than 5'11". Not a bad height, honestly. Like you can't tell the difference really between 5'11" and 6 foot, if we're being honest. But either way, I have like nothing else really going for me. I mean, like I'd rather be ugly than short, which is lucky because that's what I got basically. But yeah, yeah, pretty much it. Mr. Stinkles asked if I'll respond to his question. I guess I just did, so there you go. Dolichinis, I think I'm saying that right, asked what the flag in my profile picture is. This is basically a flag I designed myself, like maybe 2 or 3 years ago. Yeah, it's just my personal flag. Surprisingly, that's probably one of the least autistic things I've ever done in my life, but it's this flag right here. I mean, it looks pretty good in my opinion. As for the meaning of it, it's the it's the usual fare really. Is the red represents, you know, blood and sacrifice, the black represents iron, and the white represents purity. Basically what you'd expect from a flag like that. Yeah, I don't know, it is what it is. Next, what would you do if you were a woman for a week? Well, if I'm only a woman for a week, there's not much you can do really, you know. It's not like you can have a relationship or anything like that. Like, would I be like a lesbian woman as well? I don't know, but I'd probably try and get some money, I guess, or as much money as I could from people if I thought I could get away with it, like scamming desperate guys, as brutal as that is. I mean, that is pretty brutal. I mean, if I was feeling generous, and not to make this weird or anything, but maybe I'd do like a fan meetup or something, so some of you guys could actually lose your virginities. I don't know if that's weird. I mean, I probably shouldn't say that. Whatever, it's out there now. Next up, Trissaru asks, how often do you get called ugly or unattractive by others? On the flip side, have you ever been called cute or attractive, especially by women? If so, do you think it was genuine or just them being nice? So right off the bat, I don't think being genuine and being nice are two different things. What I mean is that giving someone a fake compliment isn't really nice, you know, like of course these people are just virtue signaling, you know, like you'll never really see someone giving an ugly person a compliment unless they're like other people around to see it, right? But either way, it doesn't really matter, you know, because no one ever really compliments me like that anyway, or at all, actually. I do remember the only time that's ever happened to me in my life was this one time in school, in high school. This girl came up to me and said I had nice eyebrows. And granted, she was with her friends and there were like other people around, but I don't know, like something about the way she said it. She sounded genuine. I don't know. But the thing is, when I was in school, at that age, I was so used to being like rejected and having people basically make fun of me. That I assumed that she was gearing up for an insult or being sarcastic or something like that. And I mean, who knows? Maybe she was, But in all my autistic genius, I decided the best thing to do, the best course of action, would be to tell her to like go fuck herself or something like that. Like I told her to go fuck off. So that's pretty much where that ended. Like even if I'm not sub 5, I'm definitely a mental cell. Like that's not normal behavior. And the thing is, I'd like to say I've improved since then, and I wouldn't do that. But honestly, if I'm being honest with myself, like I probably would do that nowadays, or something on that level of like social retardation. But as for me being like called unattractive, I mean that's not really something that happens to anyone, I don't think, or at least not to their face. Like I mean, I'm sure if I got like rejected by a girl in high school or something, and she went to it and told her friends, they probably were all like, "Ew, not him," that kind of thing. I mean, I've had that kind of thing happen to me in person before, actually. Like I overheard these girls on my school bus once talking about me, like if they'd go out with me, and they went like when my name came up, they all went like, "Ew, not him! Oh my god!" Like that kind of thing. Fuck, it's over. And that's about it, though. I mean, no one else really comments on my appearance. Like, I don't think I'm hideous, to be honest. Like, honestly, I'd rate myself a 3 out of 10, maybe a 4 on a good day. With some looks maxing, I could probably become a 5 out of 10 at best. At best, maybe a 6. But the thing is, like, if you're gonna get any luck with anyone as a 6 out of 10, you need to be born as a 6 out of 10 and then like ascend from there. Like I mean that's pretty brutal. That the position someone else is born into, it's like, oh, I have to improve to have any chance with women. That's the spot that I'm striving for. Like it's over when other people are disappointed to be born with the thing that's even out of your reach. And throw on top of that the fact that I'm a huge mental cell, and at that point, I mean, it pretty much was over before it even began for me. Like I know I've been on this question for a while, but now that I think about it, I did used to get these kind of gaslighting sort of comments from my family like all the fucking time as a kid, and it was mainly to do with my weight. You know, like they'd feed me all this slop, and they'd always like say shit like, "Oh, you look so lovely and slim. You're really healthy," and all that crap. And the thing is, guys, like I was a really chubby kid. Like I definitely wasn't fat or anything like that, but I was chubby, and I knew I was chubby even at the time. So those kind of comments just pissed me off, to be honest, even at the time, because they just came across as so fake. And what was really annoying is if I ever got full of like slop and stuff, that I got served, and I like said like, "Oh, I'm full," or whatever. Then they'd start asking stupid shit like, "Oh, is someone telling you you're fat? Are you getting picked on at school?" And all that kind of crap. And it's like in my eyes, the thing to do if a kid's getting made fun of for being fat is to put them on a diet. Like maybe parents should do a better job feeding their kids. And the thing is, like, I sort of was getting bullied for being fat. Like this one time in the cafeteria at my school, I was in line, and these kids at this table pointed and laughed at me, and they were like, "Oh, look at that fat kid getting more food," and shit like that would happen to me sometimes. I'm not gonna sit here and be like, "Oh, that happened to me every day," but it did happen quite a lot. And the thing is, like, my family just made it worse by feeding me so much slop, and I was just a little kid, like I didn't know any better. It's not like I had a choice, Like looking back, I was just such a poor, tiny, like defenseless kid, and I got sent to this fucking place with all these other huge kids, pushed me around and bullied me and all this crap. And I got sent home where my family just made my life 1,000 times worse. Whatever. I mean, it is what it is. It's over now. It's not like I can do anything about it. Um, but my family does do that kind of stuff pretty often, to be honest. Like I talked to my mum before I moved out about the black pill, and she'd be like, she'd agree with me. She'd be like, "Oh yeah, it is over for some people, but you're not ugly, so who cares? Why does it matter?" And stuff like that, that kind of shit. Just gaslighting that's disguised as a compliment, or reassurance or whatever shit. I hate that kind of crap. I really do. That reminds me of this time I got sent to this pretty much a rehab camp in Scotland for like troubled teens, pretty much. And during this like one activity, we had to camp like out by this mountain, and then climb up it the next morning or the next day. And overnight when we were camping, I got sick. I'm pretty sure I actually caught COVID too, since it was going around the camp at the time. Like some people tested positive for that shit. And the next morning, I just felt like absolute shit. Like my head was spinning, and it felt like I was about to crack open like a watermelon. And every step I took, it was so painful. My head felt like a fucking bowling ball on my shoulders, you know. The next morning, I told the instructor I didn't feel well, and they were basically just like, it sounds like you're giving up to me, man. It's like, no, I'm not fucking giving up. I'm sick, you know. But they called this van to come pick me up. I have no idea why, because when this van arrived, they didn't even let me go back. And the driver got out and he started spouting the same shit to me. He's like, "Oh, you just want to give up? You sound like a quitter to me, bro," and all this rubbish. And it's like, just shut up, you know. And in the end, I had to walk up this fucking mountain with everyone because no one would listen to me, no one would believe me. It's like my mum would say, it's because of my face, you know, you know. And the whole time I felt like I was gonna faint. Like I didn't even feel like throwing up. Like I would have loved to be sick because that would have just proved me right. I didn't even feel like that. It was all just in my head. You know, but the whole time as we were going, this fucking guy ahead of me was like, "Keep going, guys, keep going, Corey, we're almost there," and just shut up, you know, just be quiet. And looking back, I'm pretty sure they didn't believe that I was sick at all. You know, like they thought I was actually just like trying to get out of it, and they thought like by hyping me up they'd try and make it better or some shit. I mean, that's something you get used to as a sub 5, not being believed, you know, but it's just so annoying. It's like, shut up, you know. And that's what life is like, you know, with all these people constantly going on about, keep going, don't give up, it's only over when you give up, and all this shit. It's like, when in reality they have no idea. You know, they have no idea what it's like to be in your position. No idea. And they never can. Anyway. Alright, that was kind of a long one. But kind of similar to the last question is Kebab Muncher, who asked, do women on the street ever stop mid-convo and look at you with disgust as you're passing by? If this actually fucking happens to someone, it's over for you. This shit has never even happened to me, bro, but honestly, like, not really. Not that I notice anyway. Like I said, I'm not like eye-catchingly strange, but I'm just bad enough to not be considered a normie. So I guess I'm like a failed normie. But in a way, going unnoticed and being like a fly on the wall is pretty bad. Like, it's definitely not as bad as catching like looks from people. That's just wild, bro. If this actually happens to people, holy shit. But it's like, would you rather be so ugly that everyone stares at you and you have like their full attention, albeit negative, you know, or would you rather just be normal enough to pass by and not gain attention and then go completely ignored by everyone? Like, I don't know which is worse actually. You know, like, I don't know, just take your pick. Apparently this is another quickfire round, but next up, Jacob Call asks if I'd rather be 4 inches taller or have a good jawline. Now the thing about me is my jawline isn't too bad. Like, I definitely benefit from a stronger jawline, but I think the bone structure of my face isn't too bad. Not the front of it anyway. Like, the bone structure in the back of my head is really fucking weird. I have like these dimples on the back of my fucking head. Like, it's covered up by hair so you don't notice, but if I ever go like full like Nord Reaper bald cell, like, it's over for me. Like, it's over for me anyway, obviously, but I just look like a fucking milk dud with a pill head. It'd be over. But I think I benefit more from having like better cheekbones, or better yet, maybe a smaller forehead, or even better than that, I could fix my like blind lazy eye that just fucking ruins me. But that's not the question. I mean fixing that would probably elevate me to like a 5 out of 10 though. But yeah, like I said, that's not the question, so I guess I'll take the 4 inches. I'll take the height. Like I said, I'm around like 5'10", so I guess like an extra 4 inches would do a lot for me, I think. I mean, not really, it's not like this is a real situation, but it would, like, extra 4 inches would make me like, what, 6'2", and that would put me on like an even playing field with the other guys I see around my school, you know. Like, when I go and walk around my college or whatever, like, I get height mocked by basically every guy I see by at least a few inches, you know, so that would just put me in the same position as all of them. But obviously they also facially mock me as well, so really there's no one thing that will stop me being a sub 5, you know, and really no amount of looks maxing short of becoming like an actual Chad will fix my, you know, high neuroticism, like my mental cellness, I guess. But to answer the question, basically I take the height. It was meant to be a quick fire round. It wasn't quick at all, was it? But shit. So Dirk asks, how much free will do you think we have, and is complete determinism biblical? And firstly, there are like definitely much more knowledgeable people that could answer the second part of that question. But I'd say like complete determinism probably isn't biblical, but that doesn't mean like some things aren't determined, right? So I do think there are some aspects of the universe that are undetermined, like even fairly obvious things, like you could do things that aren't determined already. But I do think the amount of success you'll have in those things is kind of determined mainly by genetics, you know. I mean, that's the key principle of the black pill, really. So you can choose what to do, but whether or not you'll be successful is determined by your genetics, you know. But it's not complete determinism because there's some wiggle room, right? So the way I'd put it is that it's not that genetics determine how successful you'll be, because you can have amazing genetics and still end up a bum pretty much. But genetics determine the cap of your success, right? So if you have bad genetics, you can work as hard as you want and still not be successful, or you can just have average genetics and work hard to be somewhat successful. Or if you don't work hard, then it'll be over for you. And I think a good analogy to this is like money, you know. So if you're born into like a really rich family, then you basically don't have to lift a finger and you'll still be successful. Or you can be born into a really poor family and work really hard, but it'll still be over for you pretty much because there's like a ceiling you hit, you know. But if you're like the majority of people, you'll be born into like a middle class family where if you work hard, you can make a better life for yourself. But if you don't, it'll be over for you, and it's kind of undecided, right? So the either extreme, it's like kind of predetermined you'll be successful or you won't be. But in the middle, there's some wiggle room, right? So it's not like life is handed to you if you're in the middle, but it's also not like it's impossible to succeed, right? And the same goes with genetics, you know. And people like us, we're just genetically poor, you know. That's all there really is to it, I think. But as for the free will part of the question, and this is a really good question, by the way, thank you for this, but I used the word choose earlier, but really I don't think we really have free will, in the sense that I don't think we choose what we want, right? So what I mean is, if you think about it like this, right, there are only two reasons somebody would choose to do something, either because they want to or because they have to. So obviously if you have to do something, it's not a case of free will. Like at some point you have to die, at some point, you know, you have to digest food. Like if you put it into your body will just do it automatically, right? Like these are like inevitable or unconscious actions, right? But I'd argue we don't really have free will. Like no one's arguing we have free will to do those things, but I'd argue we also don't have free will to do the things we want to do either, because nobody chooses what they want. Like if I want a relationship with a woman, I never chose to want that. And in fact, you know, if I could choose not to want that, I'd do so in a heartbeat, right? So when I pursue a relationship with a woman, or when I give up on that, I'm only doing it because I want to take the action. And really, you can look at it from two angles. Like you can either think we do have free will because you can choose to do what you want, or you don't have free will because you don't choose what you want. And either way, it's really, you know, two sides of the same coin. But to me, genetic determinism is more significant than free will, because whether or not we have free will, it does feel like we do, right? And maybe this isn't the right thing to say from a philosophical standpoint, but to me that's kind of good enough, to be honest. But I think genetic determinism has a much bigger impact on our lives, because whether or not we have free will, our genetics still determine how successful our actions will be. And I think society at large is still unwilling to acknowledge that. And I get why, you know, like since it does make people very uncomfortable. But there it is, I guess that's my answer. Anyway, Spiritual Riz asks, you probably don't have Spiritual Riz if you're on this channel, but this guy asks how much I think money would fix our problems. And really my answer depends on whether or not you're going after women, you know. Like if your problem is not being able to get a girlfriend, then money will solve it to an extent, in the sense that like no matter how ugly you are, you know, money will help you with that. But if you're looking for a deep connection with someone, and for someone to like actually understand you and care about you, it doesn't really help, you know. In fact, it might just get in the way, to be honest. And of course there's the fact that the uglier you are, like the more money it will take. But with enough power and money and influence and all that kind of crap, even like a 0 out of 10 can still get a girl, you know, but you just need a lot of it if you're a 0 out of 10. Now, if your problem isn't with women, but instead trying to just cope in peace, after having given up on women, which is the situation I'm in now, my answer is 100% yes. Money doesn't only help actually, or it doesn't only help fix 30% of your problems, but it is the defining factor of how successful your coping will be, I think. So if genetics and looks determine your success in dating, I think money determines your success in coping. And when people say money can't buy happiness, I mean, there's some truth to that. There is some truth to that, but I think the reply to this comment put it very well, where it says money equals more freedom, power, and more copes. And it does, And now that I've given up on women, my goal is basically just to get as much money as possible to help me cope in peace, pretty much. So my answer is yes, basically. More than 30%, like 100%. Okay, so last two questions now. And Hellenic Peanut asked if I listen to any music to cope. Now, I don't really listen to music to cope, really. Like, I used to do that a lot more than I do now, anyway. But really, it doesn't work for me like that, like it used to, anyway. But I do listen to music while I do things. I guess I kind of do listen to music to cope, because I listen to music when I'm doing things that require some concentration, like studying or whatever. So I spend basically all my time watching YouTube, since I prefer not to be alone with my thoughts. But if I'm like studying or something, I can't really watch like a YouTube video at the same time, so I listen to music instead, since I can kind of focus. So I guess that's coping of a sort. And if you're interested in what I listen to generally, I made a little playlist on Spotify of some songs I like, and I'll leave a link in the description, and I might add to it over time if I remember to do that. And if you're really interested in what I like, then there's a playlist on my channel of some of my favourite Teto songs, which is something I like. It sort of kind of takes me back. If you're like really interested in what I listen to, that's there. It's very esoteric, but if you're, yeah, I mean, I put it out there now, so. Anyway, last question from this guy. I'm not even going to try and pronounce that, but he asks, where do you see yourself in 10 years? I personally see myself dead. I'd say it really depends on whether or not I get my degree, because if I do, and I can get a PhD, which is definitely a long shot, don't get me wrong, like, I'm not an idiot, like, I know that probably won't happen, but if that is the case, then money probably won't be an issue, because of the field I'm in, or the field I'd be in. I mean, like, I wouldn't be rich or anything, but I certainly wouldn't be worrying about money. But to be honest, as it stands now, I really can't see myself finishing my degree, let alone a PhD. So in that case, I'd probably just NEET out, maybe try and collect some NEET bucks. I think, like, my blind eye coupled with, like, my autism and, like, neuroticism, whatever, means I should probably be able to get some kind of disability pay, maybe, but it's not really ideal either way. And I think I'd be, like, in that situation, I'd be still heavily reliant on my family for support, which is not really a situation I'd want to be in, or I'm looking to be in. And the one thing I really want to avoid, though, to be honest, is going back into retail. No, I absolutely hated wage maxing. Like, looking back on it now, like, almost a year later, well, not exactly a year, but, a while later, looking back on it, like, I definitely, like, tried to gaslight myself into liking it, or at least, like, not hating it, Like, I'd tell myself that I had to work or whatever, and that, it's entitled to think, that you don't have to work. And it's not like that's really wrong, but at the same time, it wasn't the work that was the issue, it was the people. Like, I could work all day, every day, that's not the problem. The problem is the fucking retards I was working with. And you'll get that wherever you go. It's not like the place I was working was, like, one bad place. It's like, it's everywhere you go, it's like that, And really, I'll probably do anything that would help me, like, avoid returning to wage maxing, Like, don't get me wrong, the NEET lifestyle has its downsides, like, I recognise that. But for me, there's no doubt that it beats wage maxing every time, And other than that, I really have no plans apart from just, like, coping in peace, finding new copes, and expanding on old ones, I guess. That's pretty much it. So I'm pretty sure those are all the questions. Thank you to everyone who asked something. If I did miss your question, or you thought of something you wanted to ask, then you can always comment here and I'll try to get back to people. Once again, thank you for 600 subscribers now. Almost 700 actually. We're coming up on like 1,000 subscribers, which is, it feels really weird actually. I didn't think nearly this many people would be interested when I started out, so thank you for that. I've been doing this channel for almost a year now, so thank you to everyone who watches, likes, comments, subscribes, all that kind of stuff, and yeah, that's pretty much it.